Today's episode of Acting 101 is sponsored by Factor. This podcast and every other podcast that I produce is also supported by Patreon, where they get completely ad-free versions, unedited versions, which includes an extra little conversation at the start of this specific episode, extra content, and early content. Hello, everyone! Welcome to another episode of Voice Acting 101. I'm here with Nick. Nick, who are you and what are you doing in my house?
Oh, shit. I'm caught red-handed.
Yeah.
I'm the Oreo delivery guy. What do you mean? What am I doing here?
He's not lying. He did bring Oreos. We just played through some Resident Evil 4 on Twitch. This will publish days after that. But why did we do that?
Yes, why did we do that? My name is Nick Apostolides, and I'm an actor in Los Angeles, and I'm a big-ass gamer, and that's why I'm here. To share some passion about video games and talk about... What do we talk about?
We're going to talk about your whole career. All
okay.
of it. From when you were a wee lad. But most recently, the voice of Leon S. Kennedy and physical... What's the correct phrasing? For body?
Performance capture, we'll call it.
Okay, so the performance capture and voice of Leon S. Kennedy in Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 2, which is what we were just playing, obviously.
Yes, so there's motion capture where you capture the body, but if you do full performance capture in a game, you have the head cam on.
Yes.
People might have seen that. You got a camera staring at your face. You get sometimes the dots. They're recording your voice, your facial expression, and your body at the same time. So it's really just like a digital avatar of you.
It's kind of creepy, but also very cool.
But you can be anything, and that's what's cool about mocap, is that you can be a human, you can be an ogre, you can be a creature, a witch, anything.
And you get to see it in real time a lot of the time too, right?
You get to see it in real time.
So cool. It's such a cool facet of video games. But to walk us back a little bit, how did you get started?
How did I get started?
Everyone's always got an interesting answer, but they always say they don't.
Okay, all right. Here's my answer. I was working in hospitality. Okay, I was in my young 20s working in hotels, and I was around people all the time. I was a private level concierge. And have you ever heard the phrase that, or the saying that if 3 random people tell you something in your life, that's the universe telling you that you should do something? Have you ever heard that?
That's interesting.
Okay, so I'm working at this hotel, people all the time, and I heard about 50 times people asked me if I was an actor, or they said, you should try acting. And they would keep saying this, and I would get really curious, like, why? And I would ask why. And they said, because you have very honest eyes when you speak.
Wow.
And I was a concierge, and the role of a concierge can be taken as very smoozy, like schmoozy, because you're going for the tip. Yep. You always want the tip and everything. Yep. And I was just very genuine. I wanted to help people all the time. And when I kept hearing that, I said, damn it, maybe I should just try. And so I started to audition for student films in Boston.
What were your aspirations at that time? Like, did you have a plan? To
be honest with you, I didn't really know. Okay. People urged me. I worked in Disney World back in the day. My guest service manager said, you should be in hospitality. You're good with people. And so I was like, hey, maybe I'm a hospitality guy. I don't know. And I got into hotels, and that's what led me there. And when I was auditioning for these student films, I mean, growing up, I was just a regular guy. I just, emulated characters like John McClane and like Indiana Jones. And like, of course, the little part of me was like, I would love to be an action hero one day. And then I started to book some roles in student films in Boston. And then, a couple of years later, I moved to LA, and here I am.
It is time to talk about Factor, which is a meal service that I've been using every single week for the last several months. Actually, people ask me all the time how I manage my time, like how do I have a full-time job and a YouTube channel, and how did I do boxing training as well? And I promise you, no small part of that was because of Factor, which is a meal delivery service that delivers you healthy food, high protein options, low calorie options, keto options, directly to your doorstep every single week. Basically, every week you can select which meals you want from Factor's chefs, and all meals arrive pre-prepared and ready to eat in 2 minutes or less. It's actually even faster than ordering it. Factor absolutely cuts out stressful meal planning and extensive prepping, so meals come together in just a matter of minutes. It totally takes the guesswork out of what you want to make each day, and they rotate in and out different recipes so that it always feels fresh. I already mentioned they have keto and calorie smart and protein options, but they do also have vegan and vegetarian and more than 27 meal options each week, so there is something for everyone. Meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can add more or reduce the number depending on your specific specific needs, plus you can easily modify food preferences and skip a week if needed. There are 33 extra options, including smoothies, keto shakes, desserts. I will also say they have some of the best customer service that I've ever had from any service in my life. The people doing the customer service don't know that Factor sponsors my YouTube channel, so I'm just saying that as like a personal vouch. So use my link or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGALANAHMAY40 for 40% off plus 20% off your next month. Huge thank you to Factor for sponsoring today's video and also for just being in my life in general. Now back to the video. I feel like that's a bit truncated. How do we go from student films in Boston to LA? That's
okay. Well,
some steps may have been missed here.
Yeah. Okay, so Boston has a very small, tight-knit little film community.
Yep.
A lot of independent film, shorts, music videos, features, and then some studio features go there. And it's a small market. It's you could be a big fish in a small pond.
Gotcha.
In Boston. If you're decent, you get your experience. You find out what you are, what you aren't on camera. You build up your reels, your demos. And 3 years in acting, I had a lot under my belt. I had action reels. I developed my stunt work capabilities. I got to practice a lot. I got to fuck around a little bit and just find out what I can be on camera. I developed dramatic chops, comedy chops. And then when I moved to LA, I had demos lined up. I had experience. I had confidence.
Yeah.
And so when I came to LA, I didn't underestimate the numbers of people out here, the numbers of actors, but I had a lot of faith in myself that I could find some work in this town. And I didn't let it scare me. I didn't let those numbers deter me. And so I came here. Because
you had done it, right? I think that's the easiest way to... People kept asking me with the boxing match if I was nervous. And I kept saying no because I had done so much that I was like, I've been doing this for so long for the last 3 months that whatever will be, will be. And that's I'm just confident in whatever's in my brain will be. Like, and if you're prepared, you kind of can't be nervous.
Exactly. I wasn't nervous. And what I did was I set really small, attainable goals.
Yeah.
A lot of people come out here on a bus and they're like, I'm going to get famous.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen within a year,
they feel washed up.
A lot of people, and they leave and they say, well, that didn't work out. That wasn't my goal. My goal was literally this. I wanted to be able to say that for 1 year in Los Angeles, I supported myself solely on acting, maybe whether it was commercials, music videos, short films. I didn't care. I wanted to support myself as an actor. And if that happened, and then after a couple of years, it was really tough, I could go home and say, hey, I did that. And so when that did happen at one point, I just kept on going. And I said, hey, let's try this for another year. Let's try this for another year. And I just was grinding. It is a grind out here. It's a hustle.
Yeah.
But you learn a lot throughout that journey. And I got to say, it's been a decade now in LA. And a lot of the people that I know that are really successful out here, they usually have one thing in common. Not looks, not talent, persistence. They simply stayed.
Yeah.
And, like a friend of mine used to say that opportunity is like a carousel. Your opportunity, it comes around ever so often. You have to be prepared for it. And when it's right in front of you, you got to recognize it and jump.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I definitely think it's easy for, like, I can only speak to content creation, but I imagine there are parallels with acting here. It's easy for someone to aspire for fame and then be miserable because that is the most unrealistic goal of all time. Like, there are a lot of people who are content creators who are like, it's my goal to get 1,000 followers by the end of the year. And I'm always like, no. Focus on, you want to make a new podcast by the end of the year. You want to release a video a week for the rest of the year. Don't focus on how many followers you have or how much money you have, because that's not up to you. The stuff you make is up to you, but the results actually kind of aren't.
You have to enjoy whatever you're pursuing. It doesn't even have to be acting or content creation, whatever it is. You have to enjoy the journey and the process, because if you don't, you're going to become a disgruntled, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the ups and downs and realize that comes with the territory. That's all. You have to grind and you have to be prepared for the hardships and the obstacles. Totally. And I didn't let that get me down. Sure, I hit financial rock bottom 2-3 times, and I was almost ready to go home. And I just stayed and I just did what I had to do. And people in my life supported me throughout that whole time. And I'm grateful every day of my life. But what we're doing, it is tough. You have to be partially insane.
A little bit insane, yeah.
To want to do what we do. But what keeps us going is the passion.
Totally, yeah. And I guess when you first moved to LA, was it just passion that was driving you? Was it like a certain kind of job that you wanted to book? Like, what was the aspiration outside of work? Did you have an end goal at all?
I just set small, attainable goals.
I love that.
I think it's important for mental health when you're doing stuff like this, to really like pat yourself on the back and celebrate those small goals.
Yeah.
And if you can reach them weekly, little tiny things, you can see the progress. You can see the incremental progress. And even if it's tiny, it's still progress.
Totally.
And it's like, okay, I did this. What's next? What's the next little thing I can do? And that's why I'm all about also shooting for the stars. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's like, if you don't happen to hit that goal way up there, it's can crush you.
Totally.
And you're like, what did I just do for the past 5 years? I never reached that goal. And I tried to be careful with that.
I think that's very smart. What was the work that you were doing when you first moved to LA? What kind of things were you booking when you first moved?
Commercials. Wow, commercials.
What kind?
I was really good at the walk and talk type, where you're like walking down the street. It's like, hey guys, check out some new car insurance. Like, hey, it's not like this one. It's really better. I got really good with commercials just because I have I'm just like a jovial type person, and I have the honest eyes for the commercials.
Allegedly.
And look, that's not what I came to LA to do, but commercials pay the bills.
Yeah.
If you Google me somehow, you'd maybe find like a bunch of these old ones.
I want to find them now.
Yeah.
I feel compelled.
People have tagged me, like, the fans that I have from Resident Evil and the video game stuff that I do, they're finding like these old things that I've done. They're like, is that Nick in this like English as a second language training video when he was like 18 years old? I'm like, ugh.
That's so funny.
And I get a little embarrassed, but you know what though? That was part of my journey, and it kept me afloat. It kept my bills paid, and it kept me out of a job I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And that was one of my goals.
Yeah.
Was I said, I just want to act and make some money if I can support myself. And so commercials, a lot of independent short films, some music videos for sure, some indie features. I did a little bit of everything.
How did you bridge the gap from doing all of that to getting into video games?
Okay, so I was doing a fan film for Hunger Games when Mockingjay was coming out.
Okay.
I did a fan film. It was a big action piece and everything. I got to play one of the guys with the bow and arrow there, Hawthorne.
Cool.
And I met someone you might know, America Young. Do you know her? She has an illustrious career in video games.
Okay.
And so I was acting with her, and I was just like, hey, what do you mostly do out here? And she said, I'm a video game actress. That's mostly what I do. Voiceover and stuff and stunts. I was like, you act in video games? I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know what motion capture was. And she goes, yeah, I've been in like 30 games, Call of Duty, all that stuff. And right then a light bulb went off. I was like, wow, that's cool. I was like, what do I do? Where do I go? Like, who do I talk to? And she got me started a little bit. She's like, you can contact these studios or whatever. And for like a year, I was cold emailing all these studios, these casting directors. No one got back to me.
I've done so much cold emailing in my time. It like comforts me whenever I hear anybody else say that they did. No, legitimately, like when I started out writing, it was a lot of cold emailing and getting no responses. I applied for a job at IGN 7 times before I actually got a job there. And that was like over and over and over again. Cold emails, no experience at the start, just kept doing it until somebody finally accepted me.
Oh, so you're saying persistence got you in
Persistence.
there. Oh, shit, that little word, persistence. See, you're a prime example.
Cold emails can border on harassment, to be clear. There's a fine line between persistence and harassment.
Yeah, but look at you now.
Yeah.
Fine line, guys.
Yeah.
Walk that line.
Don't harass people.
But, so anyways, the moral of that story is it didn't work.
Yeah.
For me, that didn't work. And I nearly kind of gave up and I said, I'm pumping all this energy into this. It's not really working. Maybe that's not for me. One day I saw on Actors Access a public submission for auditions for Resident Evil 2 Remake. It went public. Normally, when they cast video games, they're very private, internal.
Yeah.
They go to big casting directors, yada, yada. Now, I didn't have an agent. And I saw this thing. I quickly submitted because I thought it was a fan film. I thought it was a student film. I just saw Resident Evil 2. That game came out 1998.
I'm amazed that they did that.
They did that, and they broke NDA because it wasn't even a code name. So I submitted to this thing, and I said, hey, big fan of Resident Evil. I'd love to audition for Leon. And I get the audition back. It's like, you have an audition for this on next Wednesday. And I looked at it. I'm like, what is this thing? And I looked and it said, this is the actual motion capture for the remake of the video game. And this is Leon Kennedy. And I'm like,
oh my
what?
God.
And I poured my heart out.
I can't believe that's how that happened.
More,
that's nuts.
So more messages. I said, thank you so much. Huge fan, blah, blah. I prepped my ass off for weeks. I had friends help me with how to prep this audition. This was my life. This was my one opportunity. And I knew the games inside and out because I started playing in 1998. And I got the first audition. I nailed it. I got a call back. And after the call back, I nailed that one too. And I did something that an actor should maybe possibly never do. And I wrote a big email. And I asked the casting director to please share that with the director. It was not begging for the role at all. Not beggy. I'm not like that. I poured my heart out and I just told them what the franchise means to me. And I said, I understand this world. I understand the characters. I said, I am not the only guy that can play this role. I said, but if you give me a chance, I will give you everything. And I will give you a hell of a rendition of Leon.
What did they say?
It was very bold.
Yeah, that is very bold.
I got the role, and they said they actually took that letter into consideration.
I think I would too, in casting. I think if I got an email, yeah, you're right that beggy would be off-putting and seems unprofessional and like someone you don't want to work with.
It was very particularly worded. It was very careful.
There's a thing about video games and how long you have to work on them for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if somebody can give you an indication that they're going to be a good team player and collaborative and passionate about a project, that's going to sell them probably beyond what an audition tape can just do. Because like, as actors, you guys have to work together for such a long time with directors and writers and animators all on these tiny, weird looking sets. You need to know someone's like good for the team, right? Like that's an important thing.
I hear that every time.
Yeah.
They don't want to cast jerks.
Totally.
They might be the best actor in the room, but if they're jerks, that's a lot of negative points.
Yeah. It's not worth it. It's too much time and too much money. But
that's almost with any career. It's not just with acting. I mean, look at these jobs that you have, for instance, like you don't want to work with in a toxic environment with people you just hate. I mean, that's going to affect the work.
It's true. I have a very good team. Shout out to Santa Monica Studio.
Shout out to Santa Monica Studios.
So you book the job.
Yeah.
You become Leon. Then what? What did you do? Did you go out and party? Like, what's your first response to actually booking it?
My knees went weak. I was painting a house when that happened. Cause
nice.
I'm a painter as well. I just like it. It's therapeutic. And I almost fell off the ladder. I'm like...
That's very Leon of you, actually. A lot of ladder stuff.
No, I remember that. It was a big moment in my life because Resident Evil has been my favorite franchise since 98. Yeah. And when she called me up, she said, hey, would you like to be a Leon? I said, are you fucking kidding me? She goes, no, I'm not fucking kidding you. You want to be Leon? I say, yes.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm
busy that day. Might have to wash my hair.
I got to go to CVS that day.
Yeah, sorry.
I need toothpaste. I don't know. I can't even describe it to you. It's just like I've been in a surreal state for a very long time because it's not often that a performer gets to work on something that is his favorite thing. Yeah. The only thing that would top this is to get in a time machine and go back to be in Terminator 2.
Great film.
And, maybe be cast as Kyle Reese or something like that.
That'd be pretty cool, yeah.
Well, he wasn't in 2.
It'll have
maybe
to be
John
the
Connor or something. Yeah.
Of Terminator 2 when that gets made by Capcom. We'll figure it out. It's not going to happen. Yeah. Who's the first person you told?
First person I told was my little brother.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Because your brothers, I don't remember if we mentioned it here. You played the games through together, right? Your whole life?
Yeah. I introduced my little brother to video games when he was 5 years old, and I started him the right way with Mario.
Nice.
Because he had to.
Yeah.
And then I introduced him to Resident Evil when he was 9. And so I was babysitting him one day, and he was playing Mario Sunshine at the time, probably. And I was like, Dave, do you want to play a big boy game? And he's like, yeah. It's like, okay, we're playing Resident Evil 4 because it just came out. And he had nightmares for 3 weeks.
Worth it. And
he fell in love. And that's it's now his favorite franchise too.
That's awesome. So what did he say when you told him?
He flipped out. And he almost didn't believe it. Yeah.
That is incredible. So
yeah.
you start work. I'm trying not to make this like too Leon specific, but it's obviously a big deal for you. What was it like working as that character, or becoming that character as such a big fan of the franchise?
Well, there's a lot of games that are multi-generational and go on for decades. And we look at like Final Fantasy is a good example. Like, you know, and characters get portrayed by so many different actors over the years. And so right away, I mean, there was the elation that I got the role, but then right away, because I'm so familiar with all the performances that I grew up with, there was the pressure.
Yeah.
And I said, holy shit, I've got some shoes to fill. The actor for the original Resident Evil 4 for Leon, he's a hero of mine. Mm-hmm. A hero. And I've got to tell him that in person, that he's one of the reasons I wanted to start acting in the first place. I was listening to his performance, and I used to just daydream with my little brother and say, it would be awesome to be in these games one day and like actually be a character because of Leon. Mm. You know, and so the pressure. And I tried not to psych myself out, and kudos to Capcom, who just really just said, listen, just trust yourself. Like, you don't need to be or copy anything. We cast you because of the essence that we just think your personality is close to this version of Leon, and just go for it, you know. And so I listened to them, and it worked out. As
a diehard fan, did you have trouble separating yourself from the previous version of Leon?
No.
Your brain just didn't go there?
I was so familiar with everything. I really just trusted them and the directing.
Yeah.
The director was a brilliant guy, and I was just trying to enjoy it, enjoy the scenario. And again, I understand the world, and I was just living out a dream. You know, it was pretty much like living in an action movie, like an action horror movie. And so I didn't think about it too hard. He really does a good job of bringing you right into the moment. And he would just say, if this was happening in real life, what would be going on inside of you? How would you react?
Yeah.
With the script that we have, you can change, have liberties to change it and whatever, but how would you react? And he just gave us that freedom. And so I wasn't thinking about it too hard.
How long did you work on it for?
Oh, geez. On and off, many different sessions, about 2.5 years.
It's a long time. And I don't remember, was Leon your first video game?
Technically, yes. Yes.
But you've done a bunch more since then, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you go from Leon to now you do like a lot of PCAP and a lot of mocap, right? Like, would you say that's like your bread and butter at this point?
I would say, yeah, mocap.
Yeah, so you successfully broke into that industry. Like, how do you expand beyond just one character? Because I know that can happen to a lot of actors where you just kind of get stuck playing the one guy.
Voicing the characters is actually, that's tougher to do that a lot. I do a lot of just body work, motion capture, and that's just interchangeable. You can work on many games at many times, work on B teams, doing stunts and everything. Like
that sounds so cool though. Like
yeah,
Leon's cool and all, but like you get to just be bodies of characters. Like I feel like that's awesome.
And different characters and everything. I work on and off like Apex Legends mobile. You get to play a lot of the male protagonists there, like the people you can choose. They have different body shape, sizes, different moves, different personalities. And any given day you're on set, you're playing like 5-6 different guys. Mm-hmm. One guy's a 300-pound Samoan, or like, skinny robot guy with robot legs. I don't know. It's just fun. I have a big stunt background. And so I did about maybe 4 to 5 weeks on like Medal of Honor, Medal of Honor Above and Beyond. Mm-hmm. I've played hundreds of Nazis in that game that you kill and blow up. And, it's just very different types of work. And I just get to bring a lot of my physicality into roles like that.
What does that work actually look like as a day job? Like if you're going in there to be blown up as a Nazi, what is that? Obviously you have the PCAP suit on, or the mocap suit on, rather.
Yep.
And are people like throwing stuff at you? Like what does it look like to record a bunch of death animations?
Oh, it's so different. A lot of props. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they do throw tennis balls at you. That would be a grenade, and you got to react to that. You show up to a shot list, I guess, of like every single death animation that you have to do that day, and sometimes there are like hundreds, and you've got to take like a headshot from the back, headshot from the front, headshot from the side, 45. And
wow.
and you're just hitting the mat, exploding. You get pulled with wire work and stuff.
Is that fun or is it just painful? It sounds fun.
It is fun. And the next day, you are dead.
Yeah.
You can't even move your neck. I mean, so I've learned from a lot of... I wouldn't call myself a stunt person. I'm an action actor who's very stunt capable with limitations. I have some stunt friends who are absolute pros at what they do, and I've learned a lot from them of how to keep yourself safe, how to make it look real, how to sell these things, even for the warm-ups. I was on set one time, and for all the whiplash that you give yourself with all the headshots to make it look painful, your neck is not used to doing that on a daily basis. I don't care who you are. And literally the warm-ups, you stretch your whole body, you warm up, you get the blood flowing, and then you take your hand and you literally just give yourself whiplash like this just to get your neck used to that, stuff like that. And then the next day you are still, your whole body is just like, I can't move.
It's so cool though, because I feel like this is a thing that like we know exists in video games, but I feel like people rarely consider that it's a human doing it.
And that is why stunts need to have their own category.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not a stunt person. I have the utmost respect for the stunt people. Look at all these games that win Game of the Year. They'd be nothing without the stunt teams.
Totally.
And they just don't get the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah.
All these people that you kill, guys, you're playing Resident Evil 4, you're playing Dead Space or whatever, that AI, those enemies that you're killing, they are mocapped often by people.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it.
No. And I feel like they just don't get spoken about at all. Like
they don't.
Yeah.
And it's too bad.
And it's so important too, because like we can complain about death animations or enemies feeling stiff or like the AI is not right, but sometimes that is just animation. It's humans having to like throw themselves to the ground for our entertainment.
Yeah, and it feels good killing them. So.
Yeah, definitely. So how big of a job is that? Like if you're hired as, again, the guy who gets killed as a Nazi 100 times, is that like a week of work? Like how long are you doing that kind of thing for? It depends on the project, I guess.
Really depends on the project.
Yeah.
And sometimes these games they're updated constantly. That's what a lot of games are doing now. I got the great opportunity to work on a great team that did so much of the updating on the Call of Duty games in the past, I'd say since 2020. So Modern Warfare, when that came out in maybe 2020 or so.
Yeah.
Cold War, and then Vanguard. I worked with this great team, directed by Mikal Vega, and I was lucky enough to jump on those teams, and every day was something different. Maybe like an update trailer for Season 3, or new melee kills or something like that. And I would just work with these really talented group of people there, and every day was just totally different. You never knew what you were going to do. Sometimes they didn't even know. They would get this new shot list and say, okay, today we have to do some trailer work and also some new melee kills. And then we could do this big explosion scene with a helicopter. It's like, all right.
Great.
You just make it happen. And it's very inventive. It's creative. It's collaborative. And it's physical.
Yeah, I bet.
So, I like the PCAP and everything. I like the voiceover. But that stuff is also fun to me because it's like living out an action movie.
How much of your like professional time is dedicated to staying in shape for stuff like that?
Have to. So I love Oreos, but as I get older, I'm almost 40. I have to work out all the time. I'm at the gym 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I run about 20 miles a week.
Damn.
But I have to do this because I'm getting, my joints are getting older. I take glucosamine. I have to take care of my body because my career depends on it.
Yeah.
I have to be in tip-top shape. I have to be able to jump up and grab a ladder, it's like, and climb that thing and look nimble while doing it, do the stunts because I have so much fun doing it. So I have to.
What's the craziest stunt you've done for a video game?
Oh, that's a good question. Craziest stunt.
Well, your favorite. Either is good.
Oh, okay. All right. Getting, for Medal of Honor, Above and Beyond, I was riding this fake motorcycle, and I had this wire attached to me, and the scene was that he's riding, and if the protagonist, the player, if he blows him up with a grenade, it's kind of like the Indiana Jones scene where the motorcycle just goes and he flips over the thing, and he does a double front flip off the thing.
Damn.
And so they literally yanked me in the air, and I did 2 front flips and landed on my back. That was
super cool.
Probably 15 feet in the air, like that shit. was fun. And we did a bunch of different takes. So one is you go the front flips, then off to the side, and then off to this side and stuff. So I was just getting blown up all day.
That sounds awesome. What's the fake motorbike look like? I imagine you're like holding something that did you then like have to throw it when they pull you?
It's some kind of like maybe you sit on an apple box and they give you something in front to just mimic like handlebars. Just make it look like a motorcycle, and it looks like you're going out of control. And then they call it out 3, 2, 1, explosion, and they yoink you, and you just gotta like just let go of yourself and just trust that everything's gonna be fine. You're not gonna break your neck.
Yeah, I was gonna say that has to be a lot of trust, right? Sorry,
no,
because you don't have any option to restrain. Like you literally have to be like, this is an explosion. I have to trust that everybody else has my back while I am acting out an explosion occurring on me.
And again, so kudos to the teams that do this. They are the best professionals in the industry.
Yeah.
And safety is number one. And I trust them. They've done this a million times. And the last thing they want is for anyone to get hurt. Of course, they want it to look good, but safety first. And so I just trust. And you just let go of that control. And hopefully you get it in 1 or 2 takes. If not, you're going to just hurt extra the next day. And that's just the way it goes.
That's so cool. This is a facet of video game acting that I've never spoken about on this particular podcast before. If there's somebody watching at home who's like, ooh, I want to do that. How do they get into the stunt side of motion capture?
That's tricky too.
Though I will ask you that for every layer of it. Like if you had advice now for how to get into it, aside from persistence, what do you tell people who want to act in video games?
That's a good question.
Don't let the people down. The pressure's on.
No. Shit. I mean, this is, I get asked this a lot, and you could write a book on this. It's a long answer, but the short answer is train.
Did you go to school?
No.
Okay.
I would say that my training was on the battlefield, and I had the...
I would say 50% of people that I've had on the show have not been to school. The other 50% have, which is super interesting.
I think formal training is excellent, and I've had a lot of friends that thrive with it, but I was fortunate to start in a small market like Boston.
Yeah.
And before I ever came to LA, I had already been in maybe 60 projects.
Yeah.
That was my training. I made so many mistakes. I learned what I wasn't on camera. I made my mistakes. I learned I had comedy chops. I trained in projects. And I would say I'm a huge advocate of classes. So take classes, learn your craft, learn as much as you can, get into workshops, read books on the subject, network, learn to network, be likable on set. If you get these little opportunities, I don't care if it's a student film, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And you never know these people that you work with along the way. Like you build a relationship, you build a reputation for that guy that's really fun on set. He's a good actor, but he's also fun to work with, and he's collaborative and he has ideas. Just, you have to want it for the right reasons. I think the most important thing I tell people, want it for the right reasons, set the small attainable goals, and just go from there. It's to get into voiceover and video games, it's a very, very competitive market.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to deter anybody.
It's realistic.
I'm just trying to tell you, I'm a very realistic guy. I'm not idealistic. And if you are an idealistic thinker, this might not be the career path for you.
Yeah.
Balance, have good balance too. The first few years of my career, I did not have a healthy balance, and it consumed me. And I would not advocate for that.
It's hard not to. To not be consumed by that stuff when you first start out. So the advice is train, get as much experience as you can. Obviously, we've spoken about persistence.
Yeah.
I think student films is a really great way to get started, because I think I've spoken about this on a couple of podcasts, but all of my writing experience to begin with is volunteer, all of it. To just get the experience, same thing, learn what I was and wasn't good at.
Yep.
Have feedback from editors. That's a big thing, is just doing stuff so that people can give you feedback, like off the internet. Like people who are actually working in creative fields can give you feedback so you can learn what your strengths are and where you can improve.
Yeah.
And that stuff is invaluable. Like you got to collaborate with as many people as you can, I think. But for the motion capture or stunt stuff specifically? That seems like a very distinct niche. How do you enter that?
Honestly, to be honest, the reason I don't call myself a stuntman is because the professionals that I have been lucky enough to work with, actual stunt people, they dedicate their lives to that. They are in a gym like 5-6 days a week, learning new skills, training with people, learning martial arts disciplines, weapon work, firearms. They are just in it all the time, and they know the stunt coordinators, and that's what their whole pursuit is, and that's where they get the big jobs.
Yeah.
For me, there's this very, very small niche in the I would say the video game world, but also TV and film, where they need action actors. Someone who can deliver a couple lines and do a stunt, or someone who could do a whole scene or be a lead who can also do some stunts or just be very physical. And that's kind of where I got into video games, and I thrived a bit, is because I can do both. I have a lot of limitations with stunts. I'm not good with any martial arts. I'm not flexible. I can't do high kicks or roundhouses. I can't do any of that shit. I'm like a brawler. You could toss me across the room and I'll be good. And I'm also
such a funny thing to know about yourself. Like, to be consciously aware that that's a thing you can say about yourself is amazing.
Well, you know what? I grew up really, one of my favorite characters in cinematic history is John McClane. In Die Hard 1, he got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
He wasn't a kung fu expert or something. He wasn't like Bruce Lee. He was just a cop who just threw fists.
It's endearing.
He was a real guy, and I wanted to be that, and so I got good at just taking hits, and I can sell pain really well. But also, my good friend James Poirier, fantastic director for film. I did a lot of short films with him. He's one of the guys who showed me early on in Boston that I can be an action guy. He said, you can do this, and he taught me some hand-to-hand combat, and he taught me firearms. And I'll be damned if that's not a huge part of where my career went, is because of the films I did, and I got to be an action hero in his films with 10th Gate Productions with my buddy Travis Tyler. Like, we just kicked ass, and I saw myself, I was like, I can be that. And it helped with my confidence going to LA. Yeah. Yeah,
you kind of just need somebody to believe in you, to be honest. It's a big thing every step of the way.
They believed in me, and then I believed in myself when I went to LA. And so part of the reason I got Resident Evil is because I could move like a cop. I could handle firearms, and that was a huge thing, is they wanted someone who knew firearms.
Interesting. So what did your, with that in mind, what did your audition for Resident Evil look like?
So definitely scene work.
Yeah.
And that's what I had a lot of friends help me with. And then even James was helping me with the physical stuff. They said, you're going to be doing walk cycles, run cycles.
That was in the audition process?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. They had me do things as not super complicated, but going into like a tactical forward roll and then coming out of it on a knee and draw your weapon.
In
the audition.
Wow.
On mats. And then like we did one where it's like a forward tumble. So you literally just like you throw yourself into the air, into a roll, grab the gun and aim at a zombie and kill him.
Whoa.
So we did some physical shit and then even yelling, like, I'll meet you at the police station, just to see like how physical you can be in those kinds of scenarios.
I've heard that yelling when it comes to acting can be really difficult. What was it? Someone was telling me that
Interesting.
A lot of even like very accomplished screen actors try to come into video games and really mess up yelling. I don't remember what the actual note that they had was, unfortunately.
I would love to know this.
Yeah,
you gotta remember.
I wish I could.
I'm just curious.
It was something about like the way that you project when you're like mic'd up immediately in front of you has to be different to the way that a lot of screen actors know to project. Something like that. I wish I could remember the note, but there was this whole thing about it. I'm sorry, I've let you down.
No,
I'll text him. I'll text the director and be like, what was that thing you were saying about yelling? Also, people have trouble keeping accents when yelling. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
If you're doing an accent, you have to yell in character. That can be really hard.
Luckily, Leon is not Australian, because I would have never got the job, because I do not have an ear for accents.
I don't feel like you have much of a Bostonian accent, though.
I don't, but I can turn it on if you want.
Nice.
No, I never had a Boston accent.
Really?
And especially when I was acting, even in Boston, a lot of people did not want regional accents. And Boston accent it can be annoying. And so when I moved to LA, of course, I just dropped it. However, once in a blue moon, if I saw a casting for a commercial or anything that said, hey, we want like a maybe East Coast Boston guy, oh my God, I would turn it on and book it like that.
I bet it's kind of nice to be able to switch into it if you need to.
Yeah,
have that in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So after the audition process for Leon,
yeah,
I don't even know if you're allowed to answer this, so if you can't, it's fine. But when you're doing this amount of physical work for a role, do you have to sign like a shit ton of waivers? Like, how are they legally with stunt stuff, or do they just have a ton of like stunt coordinators on set? Like, what are the precautions to make sure actors are kept safe in these situations?
Actually, in the Resident Evil projects, they didn't let me do a ton of my own stunts.
Gotcha.
They don't want you to get hurt. I mean, even if you can do it, if you sprain an ankle or break your ankle, God forbid.
It's like the whole project on halt for a while.
That's kind of it. And so in Resident Evil 4, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. When I did Infinite Darkness in Japan, the Japanese team was hilarious because they let me do so many of my own stunts. They barely even vetted me. And they just, these crazy setups with the wires and everything. I just said, hey, can I do that? And they said, yeah. I was like,
awesome.
Okay, let's do it. And luckily I could do it all. But with the games, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, Resi 4 was way more heavy on the action. I got to implement some of my physicality with that, and they spliced in with some crazy stunt work with these teams that are just pros, like I said. And those guys made me look really badass. And so they did a hell of a job.
Hell yeah.
And so we just spliced performances together, and we have what we have.
How many people, if you know, actually make up Leon in RE4?
A lot. I mean, geez, there's the...
Like, obviously, we have, animators, developers, writers, all that. But I mean, in terms of, like, the character of Leon physically and your voice, I imagine that's still a team.
It is. So I mocapped all the cutscenes.
Yep.
The in-game, as you're controlling Leon, like we did today, as you're controlling him, that was done by a Japanese actor, a stunt performer. He did all the moves, the roundhouse kicks and all that stuff, the flips. Then stunts. So maybe 2 stunt people did all of Leon's crazy stuff. The in-game actor, that's 3, myself, maybe 4 people.
So then for that group of people, do you guys have to get together and make sure it's consistent?
No.
Watch each other?
No, I think the...
Animation can obviously cover a lot of that.
Animation can cover a lot of that, and I think Capcom just does a really good job of just making him feel cohesive.
Yeah.
It just works.
Strongly agree. You'd never tell. But it is cool to have the insight that, like, multiple people make up so many different facets of every game. Like,
it's... honestly, people watching this, like, if you guys knew exactly what goes into making a video game, you have no idea. It's
a lot.
Insane. I mean, you know.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's why that's why the credits are
so long these days.
Like a papyrus scroll down to, bottom of the ocean.
Were you affected by COVID making RE4 Remake?
Yes.
What did that do to the industry for you?
I almost was not able to do the motion capture for Leon because of COVID. And they were thinking about just having my voice in it. And I was crossing my fingers that I'd be able to do it. And we just made it happen. There's been limitations. I think they were just lifted.
They were, like last week.
Like last week.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the pandemic affected so much with motion capture video games. A lot of projects put on hiatus.
Yeah.
Just everything. The limitations on set where you couldn't have like multiple people in the volume for more than 15 minutes a day.
Wow.
I know like EA had the really strict rules, and I was acting a lot with EA, but masks, and they were timing how much interaction you had with another character per day.
Wow.
It can only total 15 minutes.
Damn.
And so the second a take was done, you'd throw the mask back on, separate.
Wow.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah, what does that do for stuff like chemistry?
You just work through it.
Yeah.
There were projects where I was literally directed by an iPad screen that was on a Segway, and the director was on this, and so the Segway would just follow us around on set and just turn like a little robot man, and he would watch our performance, and he would direct us remotely from a Segway from another room.
Very impressive that it all still comes together.
It all comes together, but we do what we have to do, and some great projects were made during the time.
Yeah, surprisingly a large amount. Like the video game industry was halted pretty significantly. A big part of the problem, I've spoken about this before, but file sizes are a really big issue that I think a lot of people don't realize when working remotely in game dev.
Yeah.
File sizes are a massive problem.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it's a massive problem with everybody's internet making everything so slow, and you can't upload the things that you need to. Is like really halted the industry in ways I think a lot of people didn't realize.
That is interesting.
It's hard to transfer big old files.
So you have to compress like everything, which
pretty much,
which is time consuming in itself.
Well, yeah, and because everything, at least in AAA, I mean, it's probably in as well for the most part. Things have to be so encrypted, so everything's secure that you generally can only remote into a server and security and yeah, it's complicated. The IT teams in game dev really done a great job over the last few years.
See, that's the side of the games that I don't even understand.
Yeah,
I'm not involved with it.
I mean, even like our operations team, the people who just run the office, they're all so incredible at what it's just, yeah, it's so many people who are so important to just making sure that people have food at the office is important. Like it's a lot of people making sure video games function, for sure. It's
so crazy. I hope to be working in video games like my entire life. And if there comes a day where my body just can't handle it anymore, I want to be in game dev.
Oh, yeah. What did you do? What would you do, rather? Sorry.
I don't even know.
There's plenty of jobs.
I know.
A lot of people. Production's really fun.
Yeah.
The voice directing's a really fun one.
Mm-hmm.
I have friends who've started in voice acting and then went into motion capture and PCAP and now do like cinematic directing, which is also a really cool one.
That's cool, but honestly, if I had to choose one thing, I think it would be...
You could do art.
Yeah, maybe it's just very time consuming. I had that. You hear that sigh? It's no, that's too time consuming, I think. But I would like to be in game dev, in gameplay design.
Okay, that's what I do actually. Is technically design.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a writer, but I'm on the design team.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the writers at Santa Monica Studio are part of the design division, which means that part of what I get to do, I have to be very vague in how I speak about this, but is be like, what if this encounter looked like this? Could we do this in gameplay? And that's part of writing. Yeah, it's really fun. It's really, really cool. I can't take credit for any of it because it goes through a million people who then go, we can do that.
But they listen to your ideas.
They do, but they make them better. Or they tell you they're stupid. Or they tell you it's too expensive. It is a really fun part of the job.
Okay, that's what I want. Because when I play new games, I look at that and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. That's cool. Oh, I would have done it this way. Like, that's the way my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just think that's fascinating. And
it's cool.
I think I would love to develop like an indie game one day.
All right. Do it. I believe in you.
Do you want to do it?
The problem is you have to have a programmer.
You heard it from her. We're going to start next week.
That's the thing.
We're going to develop an indie game.
So this podcast I have, Play, Watch, Listen, is with Troy Baker, Austin Wintory, who's a composer, and then Mike Bithell, who's a programmer / game director. And we've spoken about making a game together. And the reason we haven't is that Mike is always like, I'm the only programmer. That means I'm making a game and you're all given ideas, like doing art. Programming is hard. That said, I would actually like to learn programming. It's a thing that I feel like I used to do a little bit of just like really basic Java. But I would like to, now that I work around it even closer, I'd like to just like maybe take a course and be like, how do I code?
But isn't that something you can't just dabble in? Like, don't you have to have that in your blood?
It wouldn't be hireable. So bad at math.
Yeah.
But I would like to you can write pretty basic code depending on what you're trying to do, right? Like in theory, if you gave me a few years, I could write a sufficient text-based adventure. Like I could do that if I sat down and did it. Anyway, that's a separate podcast.
I know, but it gets me excited.
This game dev shit we're going to do one day. To give you a really broad question, I love asking people this question. I'm going to make you do it outside of Leon. What's your favorite thing that you've worked on in your entire career as an actor? Outside of Resident Evil.
Oh, that's easy. So a whole another facet of what I do we haven't touched upon. You could say it's an actor, host, builder. So I've been traveling the world for the past 3.5 years, and I've been on this program called the 4's, and what we do is we help very special nonprofit organizations build a community project that they're trying to get off the ground.
No way.
And what has stopped them is maybe like they just don't have the resources, the money, the funding, the manpower, you name it, the challenges in the environment. And we choose to partner with them. We go in, we help them, we give them the resources they need. We go build with their community, not for them. We rely on their local help as well. We break through the language barrier and we build projects with them.
I had no idea you did that. That's awesome.
I've been a builder almost all my life. I mean, one of my first hobbies ever was building with Legos. And when I was a kid, when people would say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Architect.
Nice.
A builder was my number one answer.
No way. That's awesome. Very cool.
And I never pursued it professionally per se, but I have about 15 years experience in the trades. So I've worked with carpenters, framers, contractors, painters. I worked for AAA as a light duty road mechanic. And so I have, because my dad's a blue collar, like jack of all trades. And so growing up, I emulated him. And so I was pursuing acting and hospitality in my 20s. And one day I saw a casting call they wanted a host builder, an actual builder. And they said, "You want to travel the world?" And I got that opportunity and I said, "Yeah, let's do this."
That's so cool.
And so I've been to like 35 different countries.
No way.
And that's what's kept
Just
me
building stuff?
Building stuff all around the world.
Dude, that's awesome. Wow.
I just got back from the British Virgin Islands with them. I was there 2 weeks ago.
Wow. How cool. I mean, yeah, that's very different to acting, but what a fun thing to get to do.
It's hosting. And so also like part of the show, I'd say it's like 40% of it covers the build and the challenges.
Yeah.
And it's all real. And then 60% is about the community and the story of like, why is this project important for this community in Ecuador?
Yeah.
You know? And it's a very heartfelt show. It's all real. And
where can people watch it?
It's on a very small network on the BYU TV network, very small, but you can watch it for free online and you don't even need to subscribe to anything. It's just with a URL.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. That's a great answer that I definitely did not expect.
Yep.
Next broad question. What's your favorite thing about your job?
Okay. Favorite thing about my job is when I started acting. Let's rewind for a second. When I was a kid, I used to watch movies often by myself, and back then I didn't really understand why. But the answer is I really was affected. I like when movies would affect me, and I could only pay attention to that if I was by myself and I'd have someone in my ear all the time. I would pay attention to the lighting and the acting back then and the story and the emotions, and I just sucked it in. And when I started acting, maybe I asked myself, like, why do you want to do this? Like, what would make you happy with acting? And I wanted to be able to affect people without not necessarily ever having met them.
Yeah, it's a lot of power.
To affect an audience, make them think about something twice, have them go home and say, "Hey, that scene, that was really powerful."
Yeah.
I just want it simply to do that. And so I get to do that with the building show. I mean, these stories of these people, like we help them. And it's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my entire life. It's changed everything about me. And even with the video games, we hear all the time that performances affect someone's day or it helped them through a tough time in their life.
Important part about being human, I think, is having the power to affect people. Yeah.
And this is just a really unique opportunity to do that because these games and the shows and everything, it reaches an audience of, bigger than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah.
And you'll never meet these people, but you still affect them.
Totally.
That's why I do it.
That's very nice. How do you feel about like the amount of players who've got their hands on Resident Evil 4? Is it daunting or just cool?
I mean, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
The game has a legacy. The franchise has a legacy. Multi-generational. It's like with Resident Evil 2 when that came out, I was not expecting that kind of exposure. I didn't know what that was like. I'd never reached that many people and had people comment and all this stuff online. I was never in the public eye. And with this one, this time around, I knew what to expect and I knew what it was going to be. And you kind of just got to go for it. You feel a little sense of responsibility to do the character justice. Again, he's been portrayed by so many fantastic actors. A little responsibility of like, don't fuck this up. Give it everything you got because this is the one chance you have.
Sure.
This is it. This could be it for you, And this is my favorite project of all time. It's like, this is the only time it's going to happen for me. So that's it. You just go for it. You dive in head first.
Good news. People really like it. So it seems, allegedly.
I think
you're doing just fine there.
It's getting great reviews, and Capcom just fucking nailed it.
They really have nailed it. Yeah,
they nailed it. They knew the legacy.
Yeah, they've done such a good job with all of these, and also like given a resurgence to survival horror. Dead Space wouldn't have been remade without these Resident Evil remakes. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Another broad question: what is the most challenging thing about what you do? One of the biggest challenges.
That's a really good one, Lana. She's good at this. She's really good at this. Give me the tough one. You've done this before.
I do ask everybody that question, to be fair. It's one of my favorites because, again, often get different answers.
That's the hardest thing. Let's see.
Bonus points if it's unexpected, but I understand I'm really laying it on thick now.
Okay. I think I got one for you.
Okay.
This is personal, I guess. For me, I've been fortunate enough to say that, yes, I've been more or less my own boss for the past, let's say, decade.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really answered to anybody.
Yep.
And one big challenge for me has been, I'd say, time management and motivation, maybe. I'm a very motivated person, very self-motivated, but maybe time management. Like there are sometimes months at a time where it's hard to update the website. You have this whole list of things you can do as an actor. There's so many things, and no one's really holding your hand for it. You got to learn. You got to figure this out, that out, and some months, sometimes of the year are more productive than others. Sometimes you're like, listen, I was on the road for 4 months. I just want to fuck around for like 6 weeks and play video games and not shave.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I could be just more on top of things and be a better manager of my own life. That is the hardest thing for me to get really a hold of.
Because you could feel like, I guess, if you're not working, that you're on vacation, but you technically aren't.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
You can be like, well, I just finished a job last week, but you could have a month off. But you still realistically should have a regimented 9 to 6 to make sure that you're still functioning.
Yes.
That is hard.
As your own manager, it's like my next paycheck depends on me.
Yeah.
And only me. And sometimes people say, hey, you wanna come out to Vegas for a weekend, or you want to go camping for 3 days during the week. And it's just like, yeah, sure. I don't have any job. Yeah, I'll come out. And you could just do that, and it gets addicting. It's like, I can do anything I want at any time, and I can't just fuck around for 2 months to my own detriment. And so I think finding a balance. Sometimes I'm a workaholic, and my close friends are like, you need to slow down. Just chill. Sleep in tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I gotta wake up. And then I'm a very extreme guy.
Yeah.
I'm a very opposite ends of the spectrum type guy in the gray area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep, definitely. Because I'm the exact same.
You catch yourself sometimes. Sometimes you work too hard or not hard
I
enough.
work way too hard vast majority of the time. But then if I get in a rut, restarting it can be hard. Like if I stop making YouTube videos for a week, I'm like, I don't want to fucking make one. It gets in this loop of, oh fuck, I don't want to do that. But if I am doing it, yeah, it's 100%. I get it.
It's hard. That's the hardest thing, I think. Yeah,
and I have trouble with working from home and making sure I'm allowed to technically on my employment work whatever hours I want. I try really hard to make sure that I stick to a regular 9 to 6, because otherwise I'll be like, why don't I write at 1 a.m.? Because maybe that's when I feel inspired or something. And as a creative, you kind of have to bottle that energy into productive time, which can be a really complicated thing to do. Be like, if I don't feel like writing at 9 a.m., but I have writing due at 12, I have to. It has to be done then. That structure is important for creativity in a way that you wouldn't think, or that I wouldn't have thought when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You do need structure.
There's a part of me that misses structure. I haven't worked for let's say a company for probably since maybe 2011.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice knowing exactly where your next paycheck was going to be. And I've had tough years.
Yeah.
And I've had some very fortunate years. And it's just this up and down. It's like the sense of insecurity is actually a bit enticing. I'm a bit of a masochist in a lot of ways, and it's interesting to me. And it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me sharp, knowing that hey, if I want money in my bank account, I can go out there and get this shit, and I gotta hustle and grind. But I
think I've said this to a number of actors who've been on the show too, is I feel like acting where insecurity is concerned has to be so difficult, because you can put your all into an audition and not even hear back. Yeah. That doesn't happen in most other industries. And they expect you to learn sides within 24 hours and get the character and memorize these. You don't do that for a normal job interview. No. And then you can just never hear back from anybody. And it could have been that you were too tall. And you might be like, what did I do wrong in my performance? And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, that maybe your hair was too similar to someone else they cast. Like, it could be anything. It seems like it'd be so hard not to internalize rejection.
It's the way that you look at it. A long time ago, I just changed my relationship with that. And I just realized that that's part of the game. Because you hear the stories of people who have made it, these A-list actors you see in all these big movies, and they have similar stories where they're like, there was like 5 years, I couldn't get a call back to save my life. And they stuck with it. That stubborn old word, persistence, they just stuck with it. And it's when you accept that everybody goes through that. Yeah. The people who get discovered off the streets, they were discovered one day and now they're big. That is like 0.0000001% of the people. So those people, to me, they don't exist.
They may as well not exist.
It's a grind. And if you want to do this, you have to be insane. Not saying don't do it. We're a little bit insane.
Just make sure you're insane.
Yeah, but it's a very high risk, high reward industry.
Totally. Yeah, you still get to have a dream job.
Still get to have a dream job.
Yeah. But I know that you just started a Twitch channel. What do you do outside of acting? Speaking of making sure you keep yourself motivated in off hours.
Oh, I'm a creative Pisces through and through. I have a million hobbies. My mom used to call me, like, she's like, you're like a fly, Nick. You're just like buzzing all around at these hobbies. She's like, why don't you just pick one thing and try to get good at it? So I mean, I live a lot of lives. Mm-hmm. I'm a blue collar at heart. I'm a builder. I love building with my hands. I build custom furniture, live edge furniture with like epoxy, like tabletops and stuff, bar tops, bedside tables, stuff like that. I'm an artist, so I do like graphite art. I play guitar, I write music. I have a culinary degree. I like to cook.
No way.
So I have a lot of creative outlets, creative hobbies. I love playing video games. I mean, outside of acting, I've been playing them for over 3 decades of my life. And so, I don't know, I'm just like, I'm a mushroom. I'm a fun guy. I have a lot of hobbies.
Can relate. Sometimes I'm like crippled with like, which one do I do though? Because if I read the book now, then I can't do the language I've been trying to learn. And then I want to paint, but how am I going to have time? I have this game to finish. I think I struggle with that every weekend.
Of what to do.
Yeah, which hobby to pick.
It's a good thing, it's a bad thing, but people like us
never get bored.
Never get bored.
Never been bored in my life.
You could put me in a cardboard box for a week.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be content.
Fine.
I'll be good to go.
Same. I used to, my mom always tells the story about how my parents packed up a house and we were moving out and they were really worried that I'd be super bored. I would have been like 5 or 6.
You literally played in a cardboard box.
All I had was a ruler and a cardboard box and I was fine for 6 hours straight. That's all it was. And I was like, forts. I'm great.
That was a metaphor, but I used to make forts in cardboard boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, when people tell me, they're like, oh, I'm so bored. I've watched everything on Netflix. I have nothing else. I'm like...
Never been bored. Not even one time.
That's like when you look like to each his own and the world takes all kinds to go around and all that stuff. That is just a very different human than me.
Yeah.
I could never get bored.
No.
When we started filming Resident Evil 4, I had to quarantine in Vancouver for 14 days, and I could not leave this loft. I couldn't leave. And a lot of my friends were like, oh, God, you're going to go insane. I'm like, are you kidding? They could put me in there for 3 months. I'd be happy. And I brought my artwork. I brought my PlayStation.
I finished Resident Evil 8.
I was totally fine.
The thing that I had when I was in my 2-week quarantine, though, that I didn't expect was that by the end of it, because I was in a hotel room that I wasn't allowed to leave, like no balcony, we couldn't open doors. It was a lot. It smelled really bad by the end. Yeah, that was not a thing I had considered, was how smelling a hotel room with no windows and no cleaners able to go in there is after 2 weeks. I was like, there's crumbs on the floor I can't do anything about. Like, I was just like, oh my God, humans are terrible. Like, it just like, because we weren't allowed to clean them because we couldn't actually take any equipment. Yeah. So like, I just spilled coffee and I was like,
there it is.
Well, shit. Yeah. That's here for 14 days, I guess. It's just a wild experience, but I did finish Resident Evil 8, so I had a great time. Plus. In closing, I won't keep you much longer. Thank you so much for hanging out. Where can people find you, and what are you up to right now?
So right now, I just got back from like a 5-week trip on all these gigs, some conventions, some streams, building project, and BVI. I'm now kind of in chill mode.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing now is I'm focusing on streaming a little bit more, catching up with friends, catching up on sleep, hobbies and stuff like that, writing some more music. So I'm just kind of just chilling. Right now I'm like revitalizing the balance in my life.
I love that for you.
You can find me on Instagram, just Nick_Apos, APOS. You'll find a lot of my updates there. Streaming, just my full name, Nick Apostolides, twitch.tv.
You can leave links in the description for anyone who
that's probably the best. I have a long last name. It's Greek. So even my friends can't pronounce it and they can't spell it. So yeah, links would be great. That's where to find me. I'm just a creative floating around, just trying to do some fun stuff. That's it.
I think you're doing a pretty great job. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, though. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we got to make this happen.
Yeah, and at some point soon, we said so on the stream, but a friend of ours, Susie, the Sphere Hunter, we're going to do a charity stream. Play Resident Evil 4. Maybe we'll do a speed run at some point, so stay tuned for that.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll leave links in the description where you can check out Nick. And thank you all for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you.